Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Living Spiritist group. We hope you and your families are all well in this Sunday morning. I just would like to do a little technology check. I see Monique on the chat. Hi, Monique. If you can do me a big favor and just tell me if you can hear and see me okay. I welcome everyone else again. Hello, Yvonne. Thanks for joining. And as we gather here, feel free to share the broadcast in your Facebook pages, or give it a little thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching us from YouTube. Thanks, Monique, for confirming. Thanks, Yvonne. And we'll get into our meeting. It's always good to be with you all. Today, as usual, we'll start our meeting with our initial reading from the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, from Francisco Cândido Xavier and Emmanuel. We'll have an initial prayer, and we have a lecture from our dear friend who really lives far from us. He is actually 12 hours ahead of us, and I won't steal the thunder just yet. Welcome, John. Thanks for joining. And we'll start them with initial reading from the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life. And we chose the lesson number 1 under the title Time. And it was written by Paul in his letter to Romans, chapter 14, verse 6, when he said, "The one who regards a particular day as special does so unto the Lord." And then Emmanuel elaborates on this small verse about appreciating the time in putting God in perspective, right, as giving us that blessed opportunity. Most people still do not realize the infinite worth of time. In fact, there are those who misuse this divine gift. They believe that the wealth of blessings they receive are owed to them by God. It would be fair to ask them their reason for such a presumption. Since universal creation is everyone's legacy, it is right for everyone to enjoy life's possibilities. Even so, people do not usually think about the harmonious circumstances that work together for the benefit of their spiritual growth. Of course, every person can depend on time, but what if this time is without light, without balance, without health, without work? Despite how important this question is, it is important to remember that there are very few people who actually make good use of their day, whereas the ranks of those who go about wasting theirs in every possible way are on the increase. The old saying, "just killing time," reflects people's unconscious awareness of this fact. In the most obscure corners of Earth, there are people wasting sacred opportunities. Nevertheless, in the execution of the divine laws, one single day of peace, harmony, and enlightenment is highly important for human concourse. Those who want things done immediately clamor, "Time is money." But later they have to restart all their uncompleted undertakings on the ladder of reincarnation. That is why people do and undo, why they build and tear down, and why they think they take the learning process lightly and recapitulate with difficulty as they acquire experience. In nearly every area of evolution, we see the wasting of opportunities complicating the pathways of life. However, many centuries ago, the Apostle Paul told us that time belongs to the Lord. And with this reflection, my friends, on how we are using your time to our benefits, I would like to invite all of you who join us at this moment, welcome, to join us for an initial prayer. If you will, feel free to close your eyes. If you will, if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, of course. And with that, we would like collectively to bring our minds and our hearts together and speak to our guardian angels or protector spirits, with our Master Jesus, our brother, and express our gratitude also above all to God, our Creator, for this day, for the blessing of time, and for the inspiration that every single one of us received from our guardian angels to dedicate these brief moments together and reflect about our immortal nature, reflect about the value of time in our beloved doctrine of Christianity and Spiritism. Dear Jesus, we thank you for your examples, and we ask you, please, to be with us during these moments, to help our hearts and our minds to be able to focus and absorb not only the teachings, but also the positive energies that come to every single one of us, no matter where we are, from the benefactor spirits. We ask you, please, to also help our family members, our brothers and sisters who may not be able to join our humble gathering this morning or evening or afternoon, whatever we are. And we ask, please, the blessings of inspiration and peace to our brother JC, who prepared with great care and love the lessons, the reflections that we are all going to discuss together in this meeting. And with that, we ask your permission and blessings to begin our humble session for today. Thank you, and so be it. Dear friends, if you joined us right now, welcome once again to the Spiritist, to the Conscious Living Spiritist group. And it's great joy that we introduce you to our friend JC, as he likes to be called, June Cazilan from Philippines. And that's what I said, he is 12 hours ahead. So it's a great pleasure to have him with us today to talk about the Promise Consoler, our spiritual gift received from Jesus, from God, from the good spirits to support us in this present existence. So with that, JC, good evening to you, my friend.
Hey, good evening, Carlos. Marcos, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, thank you very much. So, first of all, I'd like to greet everyone. Good morning or good evening if you're watching also from the Philippines. Today, I've been given the honor of making a presentation to you, and I've chosen the topic Spiritism as the promised controller. Uh, since most of you, or maybe some of you, may not know me yet, I'm starting with the self-introduction. So my name is actually June Casilian, but I'm being called as Kuya JC. JC, those are my initials, right? But Kuya is actually a Filipino word for older brother, because that's the term that my students here, who are mostly youth, call me. So actually, recently with my white hair, they've been trying to call me uncle, but I keep telling them no, keep the Kuya. So uh, I'm June Casillan again from the Philippines. So I'm actually celebrating my golden jubilee already as a student of Spiritism because I first went into my mother center, a center called La Humildad or Humility, here in the Philippines in 1972 when I was 8 years old. So at 8, I was already put into our Sunday school and started learning about Spiritism. Our center is one of the oldest here in the Philippines. It was established in 1919. And through the years that I've been studying, through the 50 years, I've held various positions or responsibilities in our organization. So I actually became the center president back in 2007, and I served until 2009 when I had to relinquish my position because I was elected to the National Board of Directors of the National Spiritist Organization here in the Philippines, which is called the Unión Espiritista Cristiana de Filipinas Incorporada, which was first established in 1905. So after my term there, I actually started focusing on conducting Spiritism 101 seminars for the youth. So I've been doing that for the past several years. And just in 2019, we set up a nonprofit called the Spiritist Academy and Resource Center, where our objective is to provide whatever resources are needed to start propagating the Spiritist doctrine. So it includes publishing books, conducting seminars, providing speakers, and whatever resources are going to be needed to help in the propagation. Okay. So I just like to make a minor clarification. What I'm sharing now is just my own understanding of Spiritism based on my own readings, my own attending of classes, such as the classes I'm attending now with the CLSG classes on Genesis and Missionaries of the Light. And also, of course, based on my own experiences over the past 50 years. So I'll start my presentation with what is called the revelation of God's law. I'm taking it from the perspective of the Judeo-Christian tradition because Christianity actually came from Judaism. So this is where the perspective we're taking comes from. So in our study in the Genesis class, we've already discussed that revelation is actually open to all, not just to us Christians or not just to the Judeo-Christian tradition, but also to others. So it's now just dependent now on the ability of each person to be able to comprehend what he is observing and to provide his own view on what he has observed. And of course, the will of each individual to the need to be open-minded, to take off whatever blinders we have, to be open to new knowledge. So the three stages of revelation, as discussed here in our study of Spiritism. So there are supposed to be three stages already of revelation. The first was the Mosaic Law, as revealed in the Old Testament, personified by Moses. So this actually includes the Mosaic Law, meaning the divine commandments supposed to be given by God to Moses, right? So that's the divine aspect. But there are also the civil aspect, wherein these are the laws put in place by Moses to be able to regulate the relationships between his people. And those are actually really human sourced, because one of those I think was eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So that is really from the primitive interpretation of humans of God's law, right? And now the second revelation actually was the fulfillment by Jesus of God's law. So he said he came here not to break the law, but to fulfill it. So that's why he said he is the Word of God made flesh. So he's actually the best embodiment of God's law, hence the word made flesh. So he showed us how to live, how to suffer, and also how to die. Nonetheless, he knew that during his time, mankind was not yet ready, was not yet at the level to comprehend the natural laws, or the laws of God, as we call it. So there was a need for man to still develop to be able to grasp the more advanced concepts. So that is also the reason why, during his time, he just focused on the moral, meaning he compressed everything, God's laws, into one, which he said was love. Love for God, the Father, and love for our fellow men. But then he also promised before he left that he will send the Spirit of truth. Christian religions define the Spirit of truth as a specific entity, the Holy Spirit. Our Catholic brethren actually include the Holy Spirit in the Holy Trinity, as they call it. But for students of the Spiritist doctrine, we understand that actually what they are referring to as the third revelation is actually the Spiritist doctrine. So because this includes the truth laid bare about God, creation, and life. So this is contained in the collaborative work produced by the collective or the community of enlightened spirits. So it's not just one individual spirits, but a collective, all working together to propagate what you can now know as Spiritism or the Spiritist doctrine. Okay. So now, where does the term consoler come from? The Greek word that was originally used actually was paraklete, or meaning advocate. Subsequent translations of this word came to terms like counselor, comforter, intercessor, and strengthener. But for the purpose of my presentation today, I will be using the word consoler. Okay. So now, why do we need consolation? Here in the Philippines, in our studies, we actually refer to this world, to our planet, as the world of tears and sorrow. In our Spiritist parlance, in the Gospel according to Spiritism that we've been studying, this was referred to as the world of atonements, because this is where we need to do our expiation. So we're still in the lower level of worlds, wherein we have to go through all of these expiations. That's why it's called the world of atonement, where because of the what we're going through, we actually shed tears and experience sorrows. And the cause of this are myriad. Okay, so included here are the inhumane behaviors that's happening around the world right now. Wars, wherein countries like Ukraine are invaded by Russia. Genocide, where entire peoples, cultures, and traditions are being erased, that are had allegedly been happening in Ukraine, in the Russian-held territories, and to the Uyghurs in China. There are the mass shootings, okay, that happened there in the U.S., wherein uh, elementary school kids are being slaughtered in their own classrooms where they're supposed to be safe. In addition to that, the inhumane behavior by man, we have the forces of nature, destructive natural calamities, such as earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and even the recent pandemic of COVID-19. In the world, I think there are around 6.5 million people who died because of COVID, and 1 million of those are actually there in the US. And it's not just the lives lost, but also if we factor in the economic and social political disruptions, there's already massive mental and emotional toll on people. So there's really now a need for a consoler because of the feelings of fear, uncertainty, and despair or loss of hope that people are feeling. So in these kinds of circumstances, where do we find answers? Not just to these questions that I already discussed, but also actually even to existential questions, questions that actually each one of us have been asking ourselves, I guess, from the very beginning when we started being conscious. Questions like, where do we come from? Okay? And why are we here on Earth? Why do we exist in this planet? And why do we suffer? Why do we need to go through all of these hardships? Just last week, one of my students asked me, okay, yes, I understand there's a law of progress, but why can't we not have been made perfect? Why were we made ignorant? Then we have to go through this process. Questions also like, why do we die? And after we die, where do we go? So these are existential questions that, if left unanswered, actually result in us losing direction, losing meaning in our lives. So we do not, or we are not able to value the experience that we have here on earth if we do not understand the purpose why we are here. So where do we find answers? So to things, to the inequalities, inequities that we experience. Like, for example, why are we born into disparate circumstances? Why am I born here in the Philippines and not there in the States? Why are there people born in South America into countries that are experiencing difficulties that they're forced to migrate to do illegal immigration there in the US, thereby causing problems to your government and to your people? Questions like, for example, why do we have differences in capabilities, in intelligence, in, in our talents? Why are there people who are able to enter Harvard, Yale, while there are people who cannot even finish high school? So there are also questions like, why do we have distinct physical characteristics? Why are people born with different skin colors that automatically cause them to be treated less favorably? Why are there some children born blind, deaf, or maimed, or with some other physical disabilities? So there are a lot of questions in our minds that most cannot answer. So that's why now we turn to religion, or most people turn to religion. Religions formulate, beliefs, dogmas, tenets that try to give answers to those questions. However, most of the religions rely on blind faith. They say things like, okay, have faith in God and you will be saved. Things like, be part of His church and you will be provided for because God provides for His people. And we all know there are obvious inconsistencies with reality with these statements. And this actually leads to disbelief, to disenchantment, and leads people to leave religion. And that is why in one of the books, Kardec actually said that Spiritism is not actually against religion because it provides explanations that lead people back into believing in God, into believing in religion. And how does Spiritism do that? Let's go first now to the source, where we all came from, where it all started. And I'm referring now to God or the divinity. In other religions, they also discuss the attributes of the divinity of God. Like, for example, the term is omnipresent. In the Spirit's book, we can compare this to the term or the attribute of eternal. By eternal, we're actually saying that God is everywhere in all possible dimensions, space, time, space-time now that they call it, even in the multiverses. God is everywhere. That is what is meant by omnipresent. religions, at least the monotheistic ones, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they say that God is omnipotent. In the Spirit's book, it is said as all powerful. What does that mean? It just means that the whole of creation bends to the will of God. Whatever God wills, it happens. So the next attribute is omniscient. What does this mean? All knowing, or in Spiritism, the supreme intelligence. So there's nothing that God does not know about. And what also falls under this is that his creation is also perfect because he is perfect. And there's one more attribute. It's called omnibenevolence. This corresponds to the attribute contained in the Spirit's book that God is supremely just and good, meaning pure love without limits and ultimate justice. So what these attributes actually point out is that God is perfect. Spiritism says God is perfect in all qualities to the supreme and infinite degree. Because if there is any attribute that is not supreme or is not infinite, then it's not God. Because by the description itself, we understand that God is perfect. Okay? God is perfection. So now we go to some exercise in logic. Truth or fallacies. Okay? So if you all went through college also, maybe you took a course called logic, okay, wherein there are called premises and fallacies and conclusions. So premise one, God is perfect. Premise two, God created the universe. Therefore, the conclusion should be the universe is perfect. Now, is this truth or fallacy? Related to this, I usually go back to the poem Desiderata because there are some clues there. So in 1927, the author of the poem, Max Ehrmann, wrote, "And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Unfolding in accordance with the will of God, the Almighty God, the Supreme Intelligence, undoubtedly, as per Max Ehrmann, right?" And he goes on, with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. So I think what he meant was it is still perfect, despite what we perceive to be its defects. So now let's follow the logic. Okay? So bad things happen to us. Being omnipresent, nothing is hidden from God. So he is aware of what is happening or what will happen because he also knows what's going to happen in the future, right? And being omnipotent, nothing happens against his will. Okay? So therefore, whatever happens, we should accept that it is with his permission. He allows everything to happen if it happens in our world, in our universe. And number four, being omnibenevolent, then it means that everything that happens in the universe, in the world, in our lives, is actually for the good. Because he is supremely good, supremely just. So this is where actually there's a divergence in what religion teaches and in what Spiritism holds on to. Okay. So the key to understanding is actually in Spiritism, in the teachings. There are two, what I say as two pillars of the Spiritist doctrine. The first is the law of cause and effect. we say that there are three aspects of Spiritism, right? So in science, there's Newton's law, the third law of motion, which states for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. In philosophy, multiple philosophies, multiple belief systems actually state that we should treat others as one wants to be treated. It is only logical to think that. But there's also in religion or in morality. It is written in the Bible that you reap what you sow. So this is actually a statement of universal justice, the law of cause and effect. So this is in accordance with God being supremely just and good. And according to the law of progress, everyone must develop and improve. There's nobody who will be left behind and consigned to eternal damnation. That's why Spiritism does not believe in hell. There is not a place in hell wherein after just one life you will be already thrown there for you to suffer through eternity. That is not in consonance with the idea that God is pure love. So pain and suffering are therefore not punishments, but actions only of cleansing and purification of the spirit. Because like what I said earlier, nobody will be left behind. The law of progress states that all of us will one day reach perfection. Okay? And the other pillar is what we call the law of reincarnation. And because they are able to accept the law of karma or action reaction because it is evident in the natural law, in the law of physics. And it's logical, they can accept that. But they then start asking, wait a minute, why am I experiencing this when I do not recall any instance of me doing this transgression? So when did I do all of these mistakes? When did I sin, as they call it? Okay? And this is now where the principle of multiple existences come in. With the organized religions who do not accept reincarnation, they're already blocked. They are stopped by the fact that they do not believe in reincarnation. And this is the advantage that Spiritism has. Because Spiritism teaches that there are multiple existences. There is reincarnation. And it is not just Spiritism which teaches that. There are other philosophies, other religions that also believe in reincarnation. And this reincarnation, again, is part of the law of progress towards perfection. Because we cannot become perfect. Nobody can become perfect in the space of just one life. So if we are to become perfect, then we should undergo multiple existences. So this now provides the explanation as well, why there are different personalities and lives that people undergo. That's why all of us have different lives. We live in different situations because these are products of our previous existences. We have different expiations to undergo, different lessons to learn. And that is the explanation why each of us have different lives. So what is now the value of this knowledge about reincarnation, about karma, about spiritism? So this actually now gives meaning, positive meaning, to all the hardships and sufferings that people undergo. This now gives us understanding why Jesus said love your enemies. Because we should now understand that the reason why we are being hurt by our enemies is because we are just reaping what we have sown before. So this now gives us an appreciation for the story of Job. In the Bible, Job underwent all sorts of trials and tribulations, right? So in reality, Job was not actually being tested as the story went. That God allowed the devil to test the faith of Job. He was actually undergoing expiation. He was being purified. And what happened to his family was collective karma, as we call it. Because why would God allow the slaughter of his family just to test his faith? I can now even appreciate Job picking up the worms that fell from his sores and putting them back. The founder of our center, Center La Humildad, Don Juan Ortega, who also served as the president of our National Spiritist organization before World War II, explained the differences, actually, between three sick Spiritist students. What did he say? So, the newbies, these are the people who just started studying the Spiritist doctrine. When they fall ill, they cry out, God, please heal me, relieve me of the pain. Okay? So now, those who have been studying for a while and already have a little understanding of the Spiritist doctrine would quietly pray, Father, thy will be done. I accept the pain. However, for those who have been studying the longest and already have the deeper understanding, would bravely say, Father, give me more, thereby showing his knowledge about sufferings as expiations from sin. Because who would not want to repay his debts faster so that he will reach the goal fastest? Our founder, Don Juan Ortega, also provided a different perspective on charity that I would also like to share. Because our doctrine is actually without charity, there's no salvation. He said, first, there is the ignorant kind of expiation. This is the most common manner of expiation for those who await the law of action and reaction to exact payment for our karmic debts. We wait for others to rob us of our money, our dignity, our peace of mind, and other things we value. Then there is the kind of repayment done by those who understand the principles of Spiritism. These people no longer wait for payment to be exacted, but already proactively perform intelligent expiation. They voluntarily commit intelligent expiation through acts of charity. Let us not wait to be robbed of our hard-earned dollars, but actively search for someone who needs financial support and gladly give them that money. This is expiation with resignation. Expiation accepted with an open heart. And that is what we are being asked to do. Accept our fate. Accept that we are under the laws of nature, the laws of God. So this is now why I consider Spiritism as a consoler. And to end my sharing for tonight, I will share my own favorite learnings. I always say to my students when I conduct seminars, the student who already has a deep understanding of Spiritism will never again feel anger because he already understands that there are no enemies, only people who do not know what they do, like Jesus said, and in their ignorance are just being used as tools for our own expiation. And I also say the student who already has a deep understanding of Spiritism will never again feel sadness. There is no need to feel sad for undergoing intense trials and tribulations, because these are just learning experiences we need to purge ourselves of our weaknesses and to develop our strength for future challenges. And lastly, I say the student who already has a deep understanding of Spiritism will never again feel fear, because there's no need to fear death, whether it comes through a lingering illness like cancer, calamities of nature, or through whatever manner of dying, because we already know that there's a promise of a new life, a new hope waiting on the other side. So there's no reason to feel fear. So if we do not feel anger anymore, if we do not feel sadness anymore, and if we do not feel fear anymore, then we will already have found peace. Peace with the universe, peace with God, and peace brought about by Spiritism, the Consoler. So that is my presentation for tonight, my dear friends, and I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity given to me to share tonight or today. Thank you very much.
JC, our friend, thank you so much for such a amazing summary and take us through that logical journey to reflect on those key questions, key existential questions, and how much Spiritism can help us to understand, as Allan Kardec said, taking our own conclusions at our own pace, right? Um, Amazing. And there are many questions here from many of our friends from the conscious living, um, acknowledging how much you are loved by this group, how much we appreciate having you as part of this group, even being uh, pretty much in the other side of the world. So thank you so much. I wonder if there's any questions from anyone. Please feel free to add it to the chat. I'm just going to add here our friend Carlos. Thank you, Carlos, for being with us. Monica, thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Marcelo, and everybody else. John, very good. I uh, I don't see any questions here, JC, but I think I certainly going to take your lecture here and listen again because it is very good. So I appreciate all the work that you put and for sharing with us. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing that I made a note here when you shared that poem from Max Ehrmann, right, saying the universe is unfolding. I think as Spiritism brings science, philosophy, and the religiousness together, many of us feel uncomfortable saying that God is used as an excuse for anything that we cannot explain, which is a big mistake because I think this is exactly what Max Herman was saying because the universe is unfolding because we cannot understand everything just yet, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
throughout history, you know, many of us use that language. Oh, it's God's mystery, right? Or the sun is God or is an entity, and it's not to say it's wrong. It was just the words, but the truth of the matter is, it's not because we cannot explain something today that that thing, whatever it is, it's outside of the nature, outside of an explanation that fits God as the creator, right? I think it's a natural
yeah.
evolution, and I felt that so true.
Yes, and actually, I think it's Karl Marx who said that religion is the opium of the people, and I think he was able to say that because religion, as it was before, cannot explain anything. They just said, okay, just believe and
Yeah,
accept that this is the will of God, and you cannot question the will of God. Just accept. So I think that's the time wherein religion was considered opium of the people. But now that we are studying, where all of these revelations are now coming to us, then we are able to give reason or rationality to our own beliefs. And as Kardec said, right, unshakable faith is that which can withstand reason in all epochs of human existence.
very
So
true.
it's not just blind faith anymore. It's according to science, it's according to philosophy, and it's according to morality.
Very true. Very true. Well, thank you once again, JC.
Thank you as
And
well.
I would like to ask you to lead us to the final prayer, please.
Okay, my pleasure. Dear God, thank you very much for this opportunity to be one with the members of the Conscious Living Spiritist group and all the other listeners who tuned in this morning to be with us. Thank you very much to our ministering spirits for guiding us to be part of this journey and to be able to share and to learn with each other. This is truly a blessing, an answered prayer for all of us. And hopefully, we're able to fulfill our mission to treasure the opportunity that we've been given this life. So then again, we will be allowed the opportunity to be together again in the future to continue on our journey towards perfection. So be it.
So be it. Or Kuya JC, thank you very much once again.
Thanks again
To
to everyone.
to everyone who joined us, we appreciate you being here with us. It was great to see you all. And if you first time, please, if you're not familiar with Spiritism, feel free to go to our website. You can just Google Conscious Living Spiritist Group, and you will find information about our meetings that are for now online, but we are soon resuming our activities here in the Great Miami region, face to face again very soon next month. So we look forward to start seeing everyone again in person.